We may not know yet, but that fatal shooting by an ICE agent of a man in Minneapolis could turn out to be a tipping point for President Donald Trump's immigration policy. Hi, I'm Dave Price. Several prominent members of the Trump administration had made allegations about Alex Preddy before any law enforcement had completed an investigation into his death. Secretary of Homeland Security Kristi Noem alleged that Preddy came up to the ICE patrol to, quote, perpetuate violence, end quote. Top Trump advisor Stephen Miller had claimed after the killing, quote, an assassin tried to murder federal agents, end quote. The administration has since backtracked from those assertions after videos from bystanders showed that Preddy had a phone in his hand, not a gun, before that ICE agent started firing his gun at close range, killing Preddy. Some members of Congress have demanded changes, among them requiring ICE to have warrants before trying to apprehend people, and they also must show ID. Iowa Republican Congresswoman Ashley Hinson told us that she would oppose those changes.
I do, because ICE needs to be able to operate and do their jobs. The bigger problem here is that we have sanctuary cities who are not complying with ICE detainers and cooperating with the federal government. In places where you see that cooperation happening, things are running very, very smoothly. So again, my colleagues on the other side of the aisle are continuing to point to defunding ICE and ending their operations and not cooperating. That's a non-starter for us, and I would argue for the majority of Congress.
Some congressional Democrats are calling on President Trump to fire Secretary Noem or that the U.S. House of Representatives should impeach her. Congresswoman Hinson is not calling for either of those things.
Let me say this. This is, when you look at these calls, it's a moment for strong leadership, not necessarily irrational or knee-jerk responses. And so I want to be very careful about how we proceed here, because at this point, this is about accountability, and the president has already said he's going to be heavily involved in overseeing the investigation here. And just yesterday, when I was with him in Des Moines, he talked a lot about this, and he said sometimes you do need to make changes in how you're doing things, and that's exactly what he did yesterday in sending Tom Homan to Minneapolis. So I think we're looking for some positives out of this, and again, I'd encourage the folks in Minnesota to comply with ICE and make sure that they're following through, because that's the best way to de-escalate things in this situation.
Unlike Kristi Noem and Stephen Miller, Iowa Senator Chuck Grassley did not immediately express judgment about what happened in Minneapolis. Instead, he said there should be a complete investigation. I asked him whether Secretary Noem should remain on the job, along with what he thinks about how the administration has handled this.
Well, she's appointed by the president, can only be removed by the president. In regard to your first part of your question, I think that I have taken a view going back to Renee Good, and now this most recent man to be shot, that we ought to be reserved in our statements, not draw conclusions until we have the facts. I think that you need to know that law enforcement is facing record amount of threats, and nobody wants people killed, and we're sorry for the families that have been hurt as a result of the 2 deaths that have taken place already. 1 death is too many, and we have to have potential misconduct being thoroughly investigated. And I'm following updates on this investigation. But what really makes me happy about this investigation is that as the killing took place, it seems to me the president was a little more reserved in his statements about this killing as opposed to the lady 2 weeks before that. And he said that he's going to follow the investigation personally. I think that means a lot. And then don't forget, he's had some good conversations with the governor of Minnesota now, and I don't know the outcome of it, but I didn't hear the president reject it. The governor of Minnesota has asked for participation in these investigations. When it's all said and done, whoever does the investigation, everything ought to be fully transparent.
There have been protests in Iowa and across the country since that latest killing by an ICE agent. Senator Grassley told us that people have been reaching out a lot to his office about what they've seen.
First of all, we have had a massive increase in telephone calls into the office. We've had a massive increase in email coming into the office, and most of it has expressed very much concern about the killings and whether the investigation will be handled correctly and things of that nature.
I had a final question for Congresswoman Hinson. Since she said that she does not support requiring ICE to have a warrant or to have to show an ID, I asked her what happens when someone comes up to a U.S. citizen claiming to be ICE but providing no proof of that. Should that person comply with the order? Here's what she said.
Well, first of all, let me say this about last weekend, and I think that the temperature is very high in Minnesota, right? And I think that's at the key of what's going on here. It was a tragedy, and we need to make sure that we support a full investigation there. But ultimately, when you look at why this has become a problem, it's because people are interfering and not complying with law enforcement. I asked 3 people yesterday, have you ever had an unfavorable interaction with law enforcement? And all of them said no. And I think that is at the root here. You've got a Minneapolis mayor who is saying that you shouldn't comply, you should resist. A governor in Minnesota that's saying you shouldn't comply, you should resist. And so I think that's the issue here is they have inflamed things so much that now people don't know who they can trust. And again, we need to make sure we can trust law enforcement because most of the time they get it right. And that's what I want to continue to express here. I'm encouraged that the secretary is coming before the Homeland. We have a leadership from, I guess, all these agencies coming before our Homeland Security Committee. I have no doubt we'll get some answers from them about how we should approach these situations better so that we can have better outcomes across the board. But at the end of the day, ICE needs to be able to do their job. If these people have a detainer request or an order of removal, that is due process, and these people are here illegally and they need to comply.
Immigration enforcement seemed to be a strength for Donald Trump as a candidate when he won the election in 2024. Now that he is in the White House again, we will see what the American public thinks of the way he is carrying out his immigration policies as we go through 2026. That is Inside Iowa Politics for this week.